We are now officially 2 weeks out and actually less than that from November 5th in the final election. So let's go ahead and just do a prediction that'll officially categorize what the race is looking like right now. As you can see in the poly market, which is a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry where people are putting their own money on the line in respect to who's going to win the election, you see that Donald Trump is increasing day over day over Kamala Harris. He right now has a lead of 29.5% odds over Kamala. It's like 65 to 35. Let's move on. Right now, Kamala Harris is not looking so great after being buoyed by a ridiculous outlier poll by the Morning Consult, which is again a very liberally biased poll historically, which gave her a lead of 4. Her aggregate has gone up since my last upload from zero point 0.9 to 1.1, which again is still not cutting it. Look at the underperformance of Biden 2020. He was up by 8. Clinton was up by 6 at this point in the election. And so this is not looking so good for Kamala Harris. But moving on to the actual battlegrounds, though, this has Donald Trump winning it by 1.1. And so even if the national polls are inaccurate, the state ones tend to be the one that actually matter. And so when it comes down to it, Trump has a lead right now in aggregate of 1.8 in Arizona. In Nevada, he's got a lead of 1. In Wisconsin, he has a half a point of a lead, so that's 0.4. You have Michigan by 1.2, and you also have Pennsylvania by zero point 0.8. North Carolina is 0.4, and then Georgia is the strongest at 2.5. Now, the great news for Donald Trump here is that this is very much the opposite of what happened in 2020, where he was losing all over the board in states like Arizona, etc., and still did better than what the poll said. Here, the polls are actually saying he's winning. And so, I mean, it's a hard stretch to say, like, oh, he's going to lose. But let's actually do the state by state breakdown in this case. So if you look, these are the composite 2020 results when it came down to black support, college educated white support, all of that sort of thing. Well, let's actually analyze what is different about this election. So before we even address the macro expressions of the ballot counts, and before we even look at the early voting trends, let's just see what in the big scale, large scale, is really the racial movement in this country. So, for instance, Latinos, they're getting a lot more conservative. A lot of people I know personally are softening their views on Donald Trump, even if they don't support him outright. They're definitely not going to vote for Kamala at this point. So, with that being said, I think that the Hispanic share of the vote will go up, obviously, somewhat. That being said, though, of course, the Hispanic support for Kamala will atrophy in a way that is very obvious to anybody with a brain. And I think Donald Trump's actual support will go up a ton as well. And so at that point, Kamala may only be winning Hispanics by maybe 10 points or so, which again flips the election almost just off of that basis. Let's look at the black vote. You look at the black vote, their turnout will go down as well. They're not excited to vote for Kamala Harris. They already had Obama as a black candidate. And so to be clear, it likely means that black men in specific young black men are not going to turn out for Kamala. And so those lack of votes actually hurts the Democrats more than Trump actually gaining black voters. That might seem asinine, but it's totally true. It's totally true. Think about it this way. If the black share of the vote goes from 12% to 10%, like I just did here, what that means is that the black share of the vote went down by about 20%. Now, if Trump increases his black support from 9% to 15% realistically, well, that's only a 6 point difference. You see what I mean? So actually, it's great if they just don't vote mathematically for the Trump campaign. Anyway, so when you look at this, yes, Trump support will go up with black people, but it's more so that Kamala will just lose a lot of ground here. And Trump will gain again, maybe 6%, 8%. He's going to be in the teens, which is unheard of for Republicans in the past 50 years. That being said, though, will it be this big shifter? Well, in Michigan, it made all the difference, frankly. And now the popular vote is tied. And that's without me even touching white people or Asians, because this is likely to change. Trump might actually lose some support among white college educated people because these are the Starbucks millennial types that you can all picture in your head. So these are totally not really going to trend Republican as time goes on, as the indoctrination, so to speak, is more prevalent and more common. The younger the college educated base is. Right. So, for instance, people that were college grads that graduated in 1991 are likely not to be as liberally predisposed as the graduates are in 2024. And so that's my logic there. Anyway, but Trump should gain with the non-college educated white vote for sure. It's pretty clear he lost some ground to Joe Biden And so I think he's going to gain all of that plus some more, in fact, because Kamala literally has no appeal to the white non-college grad. And so the blue collar support will look fantastic for Donald Trump. And so far as white graduates, this might look a little worse for Donald Trump, but then again, we don't really know. So I'm just going to very slightly lower Trump in that respect. Either way, Trump is gaining a lot of votes in this election. He's at almost 80 million, whereas Kamala is at 76. It also has Trump winning the popular vote by 2.4. And so these are all fantastic values. Now, let's look at the individual states, though. So, for instance, if you were to look at Pennsylvania or Nevada, let's start with Nevada. Here, Harris might be predicted to win. But let's actually look at what's happening here. Well, first and foremost, you have to look at what support is happening insofar as the minority share of the vote. So, for example, white non-college graduates will trend disproportionately to Donald Trump as we see that unions are either stepping out of the race due to fear of a major scandal among their ranks, as most people in unions support President Trump, but also you have specific culinary union factors that are trickling down and hurting the Silver State prospect for Kamala Harris. So I actually see this trending more so than the national number here. And so I think that the white non-college will trend pretty Republican. I also do think that that explains most of the reason why Trump is now leading Nevada by 1.2 percentage points. Now, this is fantastic news out of Nevada. As you can see here, if you look at the early plus mail-in voting updates, you'll see that the total ballots returned are 179,000 Democrat, which is only a 12-point advantage for them, which should be about a 25-point advantage when you encounter the fact that obviously in 2020, the reason why Joe Biden won was because of the massive disparity of mail-in votes. That being said, of course, when you look at this, you'll see that thus far, the votes, when you tally them all, Republicans are leading with 127,000 votes, and then Democrats are at a measly 35.7 with 114,000 votes, and that only leaves 78,000 other votes, which is about 24%. And again, those are undecideds or non-partisan voters, people that are not registered either red or blue. And most of these will logically go to Trump as they did in 2016, but then also because the circumstances that dictate an undecided voter's ballot in this election will likely be the immigration problem, the economy, inflation. So realistically, folks, it becomes all the more clear that when you're looking at the list of what people are voting for, undecideds will 80% of the time vote for a Trump issue. Trump issue as in something he's perceived as being better than Kamala on. Yes, there's a 20% that might be just voting on abortion. And if you want to talk to a 19-year-old girl that's voting, I promise you there's a better than 80% shot she's going to mention that within the first two sentences if she can get them out that fast. And so for that reason, I think that this vote share looks fantastic. Also, you have, this is just horrible news for Democrats. And honestly, look at the Red Eagle Politics commentary, which is spot on here. Dems are beyond screwed in Nevada. If this keeps up, they're beyond screwed. And guess what? This is so true because when you look at it, obviously, when you do the math, Trump is up. And if you look at the votes, even in the early votes, Republicans are winning in a situation where they should be behind and have to make it up on election day. So this is fantastic. And it's gotten to the point where the Democratic co-op, and I'm not even kidding, by the way, is that, well, Republicans don't understand that a lot of these new Republicans are going to vote for Kamala. What? You're telling me a Republican that registered during Trump's run is going to vote for Kamala? Why? Huh? It's like saying, a guy who goes to the Playboy Mansion is there for the pool boys. It's like, no, that runs counter to the whole point. What the cope is insane. Imagine if it were reversed and it's like, oh yeah, Democrats are leading in this registration. They're all voting for Trump. What the are you kidding? What? That makes no sense. What? The Democrats that vote for Trump, by the way, are usually Reagan Democrats, people that were Democrats 40 years ago, and they just haven't changed the registration yet. Whereas with Trump voters, again, same thing applies here. Most people that are Republican voting for Harris are people that were Republicans during the McCain era, and it's a different thing. Now, the wins just don't stop here for Donald Trump. In fact, I'm getting tired of winning. It's taking forever to make the video, but look at this. Pennsylvania mail-in request update as of today, right? Okay, so Republicans requested 16,700 mail-in votes. The Democrats did 12,500. Okay, here's the thing. When you look at this, the GOP out-requested the Dems for God knows how many weeks in a row. But also look at this. Lowering the request advantage to less than 514,000 votes. They also closed the gap They also closed the gap in returns by another 1.4%, and should get to 30% of the returns generally by the end of the week. So as this Jared guy says down here, if they end up at 30%, they would need only maybe, let's say, 9% of an election day vote margin of victory to win the state of Pennsylvania. Now, to put that into plain English for the guys that are not nerdy like me, I understand that obviously when you look at Pennsylvania, the Republicans in 2020, when they lost by 80,000 votes, as you can see here, they were behind in registrations by about, I think, 800,000 votes or 750,000. Now they're going to be behind by about 500,000 by election day. This is really good because, again, there is an outsized amount of Reagan Democrats, people that were historically, again, Obama voters that voted for Trump in 2016. So, yeah, you could see that, okay, 500,000 people are net Democrat in Pennsylvania, but actually, unlike the Democrats, we're not coping about this. They will vote Republican. A ton of them will. And so, realistically, if anything, Republicans have increased their share of the vote by about 300,000 ballots since 2020. And obviously, in an election where the margin was only 80K for the Democrats, unless Kamala were to win, like 3/4 of those Republicans to her side, she's screwed in that respect. But let's look at the math here. First and foremost, black turnout will go down. So let's adjust that appropriately. Then we're also going to look at the Latino turnout, as obviously that's going to go up somewhat. But then also keep in mind that Trump will gain with the Puerto Ricans, which are what the Hispanics are over there predominantly. But then we're also going to look at the white non-college, where Trump is going to gain a ton here. He's winning them by 21. I think he could win them by like 23 to 26 in this case, because again, Trump lost some people peripherally, especially in the east of Pennsylvania, to Scranton Joe. But we don't have Scranton Joe no more. We got, in fact, and Scranton Joe doesn't even have his own mind anymore. But beside that, you have Kamala Harris, who is from San Francisco. In fact, she went to high school in Montreal. It doesn't get any more fruitier than that. But San Francisco takes the cake for America, okay? It's the most liberal place. You think these blue collar white dudes are gonna vote for Kamala? No. The type of white guy that votes for Kamala is Tim Walz. Tells you all you need to know. But anyway, as you can see here, Trump is leading Kamala in this situation by 2.7 percentage points. That's without really looking into the Asian vote. It's also not really looking into the college-educated vote, because for Kamala to win this, she would have to be winning them by, let's see what it would take. It would take, just doing this live with you guys. Okay, she would have to, like, again, increase her vote among white college people by like 20%, and that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Okay, now that you get the gist of what I'm doing here, let's put in the math for Wisconsin, for example. Wisconsin, also a state that Trump is leading in. Again, depressed black turnout in this case. It goes down somewhat. But then we also see that, again, the black support in and of itself will go more so to Trump than expected. There you go. Now, Trump is already winning the state by 0.7. And again, that went for Biden by 0.63, allegedly. Okay, now, white non-college, again, this is what Trump is going to win the election off. Yes, the black vote helps, the Hispanic vote helps, but realistically, what'll win Trump the election, I think, is going to be getting back those people that, again, voted for him in 2016, voted for Biden last time, will come back to him, and more. An addendum, really. Because that is what really matters in the Rust Belt, for instance, the so-called blue wall for the Democrats. And so Trump will likely win Wisconsin. He's on track to win it, in my opinion, from anywhere from like 2 to 4%. And so for him to win it by 3.9 here is actually, or 2.9, pretty realistic. Again, that's not even looking into the Latino trend, but obviously you can expand their vote somewhat and also trend it Republican. Not that it makes much of a difference. It added 0.1% here. Not too many Mexicans in Wisconsin. So now North Carolina is fascinating because the state is pretty Republican, all things being considered. Out of the 7 battlegrounds, it's pretty conservative. So he's already up before even fixing the sliders here, which again, this is the demography set play set basically. You'll see that again, Trump is winning already by 1.3, but it's actually going to be more than that, in my opinion. Now, again, caveat: will the hurricane situation logistically damage a lot of turnout for Republicans? Maybe. So, I could be wrong. That being said, though, this insane share of the black vote is nuts, in my opinion. It's going to go down for sure, and by that I mean the turnout. They're 21% of the electorate, which is super high compared to every other state I've talked about today. But you could expect that to go down somewhat as well. which again increases Trump's share of the vote by already 2.5 percentage points. But you also look at the black margin in and of itself, and again, Trump should increase his share of the vote here by a really respectable amount, realistically. Trump's already up by like 6. And so, again, this is somewhat of a stretch as Trump is likely going to win the state by like 4 or 5, in my opinion. But, that's just what the math shows. And so, we'll see. We'll see what the black turnout looks like. Because, again, Kamala really needs an impressive amount of black turnout for this to really work for her. Kind of like how it did for Obama in 2008. I mean, she would have to increase the black share of the vote by like 20% to win. She's going to have to, wow. She's going to need almost every single black person in North Carolina to vote, and that's not going to freaking happen. So that's insane, dog. So, with another southern state, you'll see that Kamala Harris is actually winning Georgia if you give her the Biden numbers. But let's correct this real quick. So, first and foremost, again, the black share of the vote super high, even higher than North Carolina, 31%. But again, some of these people will shift Republican, as we all know. And for that reason, let's actually put that like at this margin right here. And then let's also decrease the black turnout like we know is going to happen. And let's also, again, look at what makes Trump lose in this case. Maybe white college graduates will trend blue. They could. Okay, let's give her another 10%. Trump is still winning by 4. So truthfully, this is great news for Donald Trump. Again, this is a very easy race to call in Georgia. In fact, in Georgia, the most accurate poll in the state history for the past few election cycles has been the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the golden standard, really. And you'll see that Trump's leading Harris by 4% here. And so if the most accurate pollster, which had Trump losing in 2020, by the way, in Georgia, again, has him winning by 4, then me saying he's going to win it by a good amount is also pretty accurate, in my opinion. Now, my home state. Again, Biden won this one according to the official results by 0.2, I think it was. By 0.31. Okay, so here's the vote that matters. Again, the black vote kind of falls to the wayside because, again, as contrasted to the 32% vote share they have in Georgia, blacks here have a less than 5% turnout in Arizona. So let's just look at what matters. It's going to be the suburban white people, and it's going to be the Latinos. Latino turnout will probably go up from the 47 to like 53, let's call it. But also keep in mind that the vote share of the Hispanics will actually shift a lot. So here, Kamala and the Democrats would be winning by 26 normally. I predict that they're going to win the Latino vote by somewhere in the teens, call it 16%. So in that case, let's actually shift Trump support by a good amount to about right over here. So in this case, Trump is losing the Latino vote by about 11. In this case, Trump is winning the state of Arizona by 2.1. Again, he's probably going to gain more with the white non-college as well. Might bleed a little bit more with the college-educated somewhat. But overall, not going to make too much of a difference there. And again, even if you want me to look at the black vote, which again would not make much of a difference, Trump would still gain a little right here. And so, yeah, Trump is on track to win Arizona by anywhere from like 2 to 3 points. And so that's pretty clear. Maricopa County would flip in this scenario, and that's very, very nice to see. And so the last state we're going to talk about today will be Michigan. Michigan is the most liberal of the 7 states when you look at 2020 and I think even 2016. But let's actually look into this. As you can see here, the big demography that you want to look at here is actually going to be white people still, not even the black vote. It's only 13%. Despite Detroit taking up so much of the zeitgeist of the state, they're not that big of a population, which is hard to believe. But let's actually just adjust this. Okay, so turnout will go down like usual, and the black share of the vote will increase for Donald Trump by a good amount as well. There we go. Trump is within 0.6% of winning. Now, the Latino vote will go up a little bit. Again, it doesn't really even matter in this case because, again, they're not that much of the state populace. It's only 3% of voter turnout. And so, again, Trump is within 0.4. So then it goes down to the white vote. And again, the Arab vote I would like to count as well, but again, it's not one of the things I can manipulate in this. But I guess Asian and other falls into the Arab thing, so let's go ahead and just increase their vote share somewhat like this, and then also move Trump's sliders a little bit in the positive in that direction. Okay, so Trump's almost tied here. Now let's look at the white vote. Trump will increase his margin among the white non-college educated vote. He's leading it by 22. Let's increase that to like 26, okay? There we go. Now he's winning it by 31. That's a little bit of a stretch. Let's not be too partisan here. But yeah, I think Trump will definitely help himself out. In this case, Trump is winning by 2.7. I think that's pretty much in line with reality. Again, I don't adjust the white college thing because I just take into mind the non-college and then factor that into the slider calculus there. But even if you do help Kamala in this race, she still is losing to Trump, even if she increases with the college educated. And so for that reason, Trump would win Michigan from anywhere to 1 to 3 points in this election. So to cap it all off, this is the final prediction for the 2 weeks out that we are from the election. 13 days technically, but I was busy yesterday. I met JD Vance actually. Got my hat signed. Oh, it's in my car. Okay, I'll show it. I'll show it tomorrow. But anyway, here's the final result. Kamala Harris with 226 electoral votes. Trump with 312. She gets 77.6 million votes. Trump gets 78.86 million votes. And that leaves her with 48.2% of the popular vote. Trump gets 49.0%. So he's leading her by 0.8 actually in the popular vote in this scenario. Again, this is not perfect as I didn't really even touch on age, but this was already a 20-minute video, so I'm already testing your attention spans. But I really thank you guys for watching. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Comment down below if you have any criticism, and I'll read every single one. Thank you. Also, real quick, if you want to see the margins for the Rust Belt, for example, we got 2.9 here. We have 1.9, and then you have Pennsylvania 2.8. So anyways, see you in the next one. Adios.